Greetings, I'm Jonathan, Polygonflow's Community Director for Dash, our next-gen Unreal Engine plugin that makes creating environments super easy. In this video, I'll be covering one of our many asset creation tools, Path Scatter, which has been significantly improved in Dash 1.4. So let's start by opening the Dash plugin. Since Dash is prompt-based, you're going to need to type Draw to bring up the Draw Curve menu, then hit Enter to close it. Draw out a shape to work with. If you feel that it has too many vertices, you can adjust that by holding Ctrl and dragging with the middle mouse button to reduce the number of vertices in the curve, or add more if you feel that it needs them. You can see that the Curve tool will follow the terrain or any other object as you finish drawing. Next up, you'll need to type Path to bring up the Path Scatter tool. As with most tools in Dash, the window needs to be fully expanded to show all available options on screen without scrolling. To start, make sure that your curve is selected and then add it to the list of active curves in Path Scatter. Then select an object in the world and add that to the active scatter list. This will auto-populate the path with a default set of parameters. You won't see much at first with this object, so I'll switch to wireframe to make it more apparent. I'm going to adjust the min scale and maximum scale to bring the meshes up to make them more visible. Adjusting density changes how many meshes spawn in the scene, but I'll leave that option alone for the moment. You can adjust how the meshes are oriented by changing the Look At mode. The pivot points of the objects play a big part in how the Look At mode option affects them. Scale jitter creates randomized scaling in the scattered assets. Let's move on to Smooth, which internally smooths out the path that the assets are being scattered upon without physically changing the curve that they're attached to. This can be used to slightly change how assets are placed or change massively depending on how much smoothness you apply. Let's zoom out a bit and see it in action from above because it'll be a little bit more obvious from up here. Here's how you can use Path Scatter with other objects. Say that you want to make a track from a curve. You can use traffic cones to create a road and then adjust the density of the scatter to produce the visual effect that you're looking for. Width can be used to create an outline of the curve using the scatter meshes, which produces a visual road that you can work with. You can use Path Scatter on underlying surfaces too, like the terrain here. Once added, the meshes and Path Scatter will only show up on the surface of the selected object. It actually doesn't matter if the path is above or below the object being scattered on, as the meshes will project to its surface and update in real time. This works whether you adjust the location of the curve, individual vertices in the curve, or the mesh being projected on. It even works if the mesh updates in real time, too. I can change its values and the scatter will adjust to follow the new geometry. Let's move on to Spin, which changes the rotation of the objects scattered along the path in a random fashion. Let's go ahead and scroll down a bit and open the options called Rotation Override, which we'll use to change the rotation of each scatter mesh along the curve to create unique and interesting variation in the environment. Playing with Scale Jitter gives us even more variation in the scattered assets, while Smooth can be used to fine-tune the position of those assets. All of these settings work together in concert to produce the final result, and I definitely encourage you to play around with them. Another way we can work with our environment is to create a straight line using the Draw tool, then use Path Scatter to place a wooden plank. With some adjustments, we can turn the single plank into a wooden road or a boardwalk. Adjust the sides and number of width to those sides and you'll find the planks transform into a terrain covering boardwalk in short order. Add subtle variation with Spin, Scale Jitter, and Sync to break up the repetition. Playing with the Look At mode is also a good idea too. It would look even better with more input meshes, but this is pretty neat for being made of one mesh instanced over and over procedurally. Now I'll go ahead and undo all of these changes. Bear in mind that this is all procedural. And then adjust the rotation for each asset to be vertical. We'll go ahead and split off the assets a little bit and then adjust the lighting. Then we'll play around with the twist feature, which can create some neat corkscrew effects to the meshes on the terrain. Slice will allow you to place only assets at specific points on the curve's endpoints. You can adjust each one, or you can adjust both so that the assets only spawn in the middle of the curve. Remove mask can be used to create variation in the scattered asset spawn points so you can fine-tune asset placement even more. Then adjust seed to randomize the assets until you're happy with what you see. Let's open the Dash content browser. I've searched for the cone asset that I was using before. Dragging and dropping it from Dash into the world will make it stick to any object that it encounters as you're dragging it, making it easy to place. I'll also adjust the scale a little to make it easier to select. Surface Scatter has a proximity option, and so does Path Scatter. Proximity will only spawn assets on the curve when a mesh or a curve object is both selected and within a specified radius. You can invert the proximity detection too. There's a lot of different effects you can create with this system, so play around with it and find out. Proximity sampling determines how much resolution the proximity effect has in the engine. The higher the value, the more resolution is available to determine how the object will mask scatter out or in. The lower the value, the less precise the resulting scatter proximity detection will be. Now let's see how to create a super quick environment off the cuff using nothing but surface and path scatter together. I've got my base terrain that I've been using this entire time, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust it a little bit to give me some variation to play off with surface scatter, which means I'll need some terrain height changes and some other adjustments too. Then I'll change the material in Dash to apply dirt procedurally to break up the texture repetition. Once I'm happy with the dirt texture breakup, I'll move over to my collection of static meshes. I've got 3 versions of the same type of tree in various growth stages, and I'll start by using the largest trees first and surface scattering them with some quick adjustments, after which I'll move on to the next group of trees until I've placed all of them. I'm using different growth stages of these trees to help break up the quick environment that I'm building so it doesn't look too homogeneous. As we did before, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the draw tool and create a curve. The shape of the terrain roughly came out to look like a bicycle saddle, so I'll trace around it and get that shape locked in. Then I'll grab a piece of wood from the Dash content browser and drag that into the environment, then create a new path scatter and add the wood to it along with the curve, and adjust all of the settings that I mentioned before to get it to look like sort of a forested amphitheater. I like what I see, but I'd like to push it a little bit more and see what else I can do. So I'm going to create another curve and add trees growing in the center. Maybe this is some sort of ritual tree sacrifice, or maybe it's a woodland amphitheater, who knows? The point is to explore and create and to see what I can come up with off the cuff. Dash gives me the ability to iterate quickly and not worry about timing. Adjusting these parameters and creating new worlds with Dash is super easy and very intuitive. Thanks for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments. See you guys next time.